your book touches on some of the hot topics of the day, as I said. And today, the newest topic is Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson was asked this question: what makes someone a woman?
So for me, it's deep. The connection is about how you mentally feel. I think we have to stop thinking about what's below the waist. And that would be my simple question, the difference between but what you believe you are and not even how you present, because we can't decide what a woman should look like either, or who a woman should date, because you get people who think, oh, if this is a trans woman, then why would she date a woman? Because they're confusing then identity with sexuality. The biggest problem that most people are having with trans individuals is that they want to know what's below the waist. And it goes to basically, I respect difference can be converted to mind your business. And I'm just saying that just with all honesty. A lot of times in this world, people just need to mind their business, let people live. If they're happy, you should want happiness for everybody. I can't imagine that you would sit around every night and try to figure out how someone should be unhappy. And ideally, if trans individuals, straight individuals, gay individuals, if it makes them happy and it's causing no harm to you or anyone you truly love, it goes to respecting difference and also minding your business.
I love it. I love it.
I want to pass the plate. I do. I right now, I just want to get up and walk around, and for everybody who's on the show, just go ahead and no, you know what? Go to his website and drop it there. Okay. Go to drartspeaks.com and drop it right there, because he just gave you a word, ladies and gentlemen. All right. By the book.
But yeah, for real.
I mean, I operate in this space where I can't imagine you don't want people to be happy. I mean, but I also am a mental health practitioner. I understand that generally people who don't want people to be happy are not happy themselves. So that's why mental health, and everybody should have a therapist. If I could say anything else on this show, I would say every single living, breathing individual should have a therapist. Your therapist, you should not look for a therapist when you believe you need a therapist. You should look for a therapist so you will never feel like you need a therapist, because you will already know how to identify when you're going into crisis mode or something is affecting you. So, because that's what therapists do well. So if I could say anything else leaving here, please, everybody should get a therapist. And I wish Black people would norm around. Therapy is a good thing, and we would openly be having conversations over brunch about, oh, that's what your therapist said. Well, girl, let me tell you what my therapist said. That would be a dream world, because we would have a healthier world.
Yeah,
I agree.
I'm still trying to have those conversations with people. Thank you, Art. I really am. And it sometimes pushes people away, but I guess you got to be in that right place.
Somebody has to lead the pack
in order to receive it. So thank you for that too.
Well, we take mental wellness very, very seriously here on
I love it.
On He Said. I mean, we have a whole series on mental wellness. And if you haven't seen any of the programs, and if some of the people who are tuned in for the first time have not, please go to either our YouTube channel or to our Facebook page, and please check out either some of the clips or the full episodes where we really go into aspects of mental health. Since we're on this whole concept of kind of gender, we've been sort of talking about gender, I do want to go a little bit deeper. I'm happy that you had a focus group where you had trans people come in, but there are certain terms that you use in your book that I really want us to go into.
Okay.
Because we've been talking about gender as man and woman. Alvin asked you what a woman is. But in your book, you kind of use the terms male and female, which are really sex terms. Can we talk a little bit about that? You feel good about talking about that?
Yeah, I'm absolutely comfortable with talking about that. Yes.
Cool. Because, well, let's go into that. So, you know, there's
ideally, because of the grade level that it was written for, that's generally where they are cognitively. They still know boy means this, girl means that. And I actually didn't write the book to try to figure that out for them. I feel like that's a conversation I would leave to a parent as I mind my business. But Miss Brookins, I'm going to use her as the example, identifies as female. So I always called her female because that's the way she identified, even as she transitioned and told them on the first day of school that, you know, she felt like a caterpillar that wanted to be a butterfly. So I began to call her Miss misses the entire book. There was one point in the book where kids are slipping up, and I did that intentionally because that would happen. If you're a little Johnny and you're used to Mr. Brookins in second grade, then he becomes your third grade teacher. It's a very honest mistake. And he did. And Miss Brookins was very kind and loving, which goes back to what I was saying earlier about we have to be open to mistakes and questions. And she said, I'm paraphrasing, but she pretty much said, don't worry about that. So in the book, because I'm not really working on sexual identity, same way I didn't call her transgender, I use what who atypically would be identified as male. And I got to give him the identification because I wrote the book. Right. So I gave him the male for who traditionally presented like boys, and gave the female to the people who traditionally presented like females, with the exception of Miss Brookins, who I gave female because that's how she identified. So I created the identifications, and I hope I'm answering your question, Vash.
Well, you are, but it's like these are such the big topics that are going on right now, right? Mm-hmm. There's a group on Facebook that for some reason is always in my feed because I'm really big on, intersex and trans issues, right? Mm-hmm. And there are females that are extremely upset that there are people born male who transition or transcend gender and want to identify as women.
Yes.
And most trans people that I know will say that they are a trans man or woman, but they are still male. Right. Or they are female. So I just want to make sure that as we continue that conversation in the adult realm, that we don't really conflate the two of sex and gender, because as we have conversations with people and try to expand their consciousness around certain issues, there are certain hot points that are, and lines that are drawn, and male and female are specific ones.
I think one of the things I found out too is, because like you said, I have quite a few friends that are trans, and they generally say trans man or trans female. But I think that and I'm gonna put trans in parentheses, it becomes a protector because of the cis community that potentially would want to do harm to them because they feel like you didn't tell me your business. Ideally, in a perfect world, they would just say I'm male or female. They've had to add the precursor, especially for the females, because so many of them have been targeted and killed and been the victims of violence that I need to tell you right up, I'm a trans woman, especially when we talk about passable, as they would say, and even trans women use that word, the very passable females, the Janet Mocks, the extremely passable ones. They have to still say it because some people, no matter what's below the waist, and we're not going to get into that, they still feel a need to know how you originated. Not that it's any of their business, but they feel a need to know. And when I was talking with some of the young ladies, because I mostly talk to one trans man and mostly trans women, that was the reason. Because I asked them about that because I found it interesting. But it's a protective thing. So you can never say I fooled you of sort, because that's the word, unfortunately, people use. Oh, you fooled me. No, they didn't fool you. You were attracted to her because she's very pretty. You were attracted to her because she either met your type or something. But to give them a way to not feel guilty among the homies, it's, oh, she tricked me. She didn't tell me she was trans. So I think I'm open to talking about as much, but I think it's even like y'all can have a whole nother show just on that.
Well, it comes up a lot for us because, I mean, we really try to be clear about the differences between male and female.
Yes.
And man and woman. And a couple of times in what you were saying, you were using male and female with trans men and women. And from what I know, most trans people a trans woman would not say that she was a female. She would say that she's a woman.
Right. So you see
very different.
Female and woman.
Male and female are sex terms.
Right.
And are very specific. It's a lot to go from a male to a female. It is very different to go from a male to a woman.
I agree. Absolutely.
So that's why, we really at least try to make it really clear in terms of the terminology to make sure that people understand where we are. Because
I appreciate that clarification.
Yeah.
I honestly
Thank you. Yeah.
never get that intimate with it to think that way, and I appreciate that clarification, because for me, I just have always grouped female, woman together, because I've never made a distinction of female being like a sexual identity. So I appreciate that. For me, I do have trans female friends that say they're female. She's like, I'm female. Yeah, they consider themselves female. Yeah,
that's very interesting.
Yeah, and
because
it could be because they've had sex assignment surgery,
which is the difference.
So that then makes the point. Exactly.
Yes.
So most of the females I know have had, sexual assignment surgery. So
which is the distinction,
which would make sense to your definition,
right? And it does make that distinction, and even still within that, there's still shades of that, right? Someone born biologically female is going to menstruate, whereas someone who is transitioned to female will not, and someone who is just basically a trans woman may still have things that were with them from birth. Right. So there are so many different levels to all of it. And I agree with your comment at the very beginning of the show, which is like, look, let's just get to a place where we can just see everybody, let everybody be where they were, because there was a time in history where that was the case.